Ladies and gentlemen, thinkers of the future and students of wealth, today we gather to explore a truth as old as civilization itself, a truth that has survived empires, revolutions, currency failures, and every economic storm humanity has faced. That truth is gold, not a metal, but a mirror, a reflection of human trust, fear, and value, a silent witness to every boom and every collapse. For centuries, the greatest minds in finance, the ones who endure history rather than be shaped by it, hold one principle with unwavering certainty. Every great investor owns gold, not by chance, not by habit, but by wisdom. Gold is not just a commodity, it is a sanctuary. Through every century, every storm, and every financial collapse, gold has stood firm as the asset that refuses to die. Economies crumble, currencies lose value, companies disappear, banks close their doors forever. But a bar of gold remains exactly what it has always been: money without expiration. The greatest investors, the disciplined, the strategic, the architects of long-term wealth, understand this truth. They do not buy gold because they hope for miracles or sudden profits. They buy it because they recognize fragility in the world. They buy it because they know that trust is temporary, but gold is eternal. When uncertainty rises, when markets shake, when confidence begins to disappear like mist at sunrise, what do people run toward? Not paper promises, not digital balances inside a computer. They run toward something they can hold, something that exists beyond opinion, something no government can devalue with a signature: gold. Throughout history, every artificially created currency has eventually failed. From Roman denarius to Weimar marks to countless modern fiat systems, but gold never needed a central bank to declare its worth. It never depended on policy or interest rates to survive. It never once collapsed to zero. That is why gold is not just an asset. It is an anchor in a world where everything moves faster, where markets react to tweets, where debt grows like wildfire, where currencies drown under unlimited printing. Gold stands still, not weakly, not passively, but confidently, like a lighthouse in a violent storm. Owning gold is not preparing for the end, it is preparing for reality, because reality is this: stability is rare, uncertainty is normal, and systems break more often than we expect. Paper burns, digital files disappear, banks change rules, but gold remains. This is why every great investor owns it, quietly, consistently, patiently, not for quick wealth, but for permanent wealth. Not for chaos, but for peace when chaos comes. Look back across history, across the rise and fall of empires. There is a rhythm to human progress: growth, expansion, confidence, followed by excess, debt, inflation, collapse. The names change, the generations change, the flags change, but the pattern repeats like a heartbeat. And through every empire, every currency cycle, every collapse, one asset continues to carry value into the next chapter of civilization: gold. When Rome began to fall, citizens fled into gold. When Germany printed money until it was worthless, families turned to gold. When Argentina, Venezuela, and countless nations faced currency death, gold became survival. This pattern is not ancient, it is timeless. Markets boom, but booms are not permanent. Currencies rise, but they are not immortal. Confidence builds and breaks. Something always shakes the system. The investor who believes the good times last forever is the one who loses everything when the storm arrives. But the investor who understands cycles, who prepares instead of hopes, that investor survives every darkness and emerges stronger. Gold is not purchased for peace. It is purchased for war, not literal war, but economic war, inflation war, debt war, confidence war. Because when trust in money evaporates, when banks limit withdrawals, when market charts bleed red, gold becomes the final form of truth. It needs no government. It needs no bank. It needs no internet. It needs no promise. It simply needs to exist. This is why the greatest investors in history, from nations to fund managers to banks themselves, quietly accumulate gold. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with the patience of those who understand storms may come late, but they always come. You do not buy gold when the crisis begins, you buy it long before. Because once the collapse starts, gold is no longer cheap. It becomes lifeboats when the ship is already sinking, and in that moment, only those who prepared survive. There is a misunderstanding among new investors, a mistake that history has punished many times. They think gold is meant to make you rich quickly. They watch charts, chase spikes, and trade gold like a lottery ticket. But true investors, the disciplined minds, the long-term builders, know something different. Gold is not for fortune. Gold is for protection. Stocks create wealth. Bonds generate income. Businesses produce growth. But gold preserves when those others fail. Imagine a world where you hold wealth for decades, not for 30 days, but for 30 years. You watch markets rise and fall, bubbles inflate and burst, governments shift policies, currencies lose buying power. What asset remains untouched? Not tech stocks, not bank savings, not real estate under crisis, but the ounce of gold you bought years ago stays powerful, pure, alive. This is the difference between traders and great investors. Traders seek opportunity, investors seek security. Great investors seek both, and gold completes the balance. Gold is hedge, shield, backup system. It is plan B, and sometimes it becomes plan A when the world loses stability. When inflation steals value, gold keeps value. When markets panic, gold rises calmly. When people fear the future, gold becomes the answer. Owning gold is admitting a truth many ignore. The world is not as stable as it appears. Every system has limits. Every currency has an end. Every cycle has a downturn. Great investors do not wait for collapse. They prepare for risk long before it appears. That is wisdom. That is discipline. That is why they own gold. Gold is freedom in a world controlled by systems, central banks, regulations, digital banking, printing policies. Gold stands outside the system entirely. It exists with or without permission. It doesn't need to be approved. It cannot be printed. It cannot be erased from a database. It cannot be inflated, frozen, restricted, or rewritten. It simply remains. Banks can freeze accounts. Governments can seize currency. Policies can change overnight with a signature. But gold in your possession is not a promise. It is ownership. Real, untouchable, undeniable ownership. Throughout history, the person who held gold held power even during collapse, because gold does not belong to any nation, any regime, any political leader. It belongs only to the one who holds it. That is why central banks themselves own tons of gold quietly. If they truly believed gold was outdated, useless, inferior, why store thousands of tons in vaults? Why accumulate more each year? Because governments understand something the average person forgets. When confidence dies, gold resurrects truth, and truth becomes power. In times of economic stress, capital flees from paper to metal. In times of bank failure, cash becomes paper and gold becomes wealth. When trust fails, gold replaces trust. This independence gives gold unmatched strength. It is borderless, universal, accepted anywhere from Tokyo to Dubai, New York to Karachi. A person holding gold holds value no matter what flag flies above them. That is freedom. That is power. That is why great investors own gold. Economic history is not a mystery. It is a repetitive pattern. Civilizations rise, expand, prosper, then borrow, inflate, collapse. It has happened 1,000 times, and it will happen 1,000 more. The wise do not hope history changes. They read it, learn it, prepare for it. Gold has lived through every cycle on record. It survived the fall of Rome. It survived the Great Depression. It survived world wars. It survived currency collapses in dozens of nations. It survived digital transitions and global finance revolutions. It is the only asset with a 5,000-year track record of success. Stocks are young, bonds are modern, crypto is newborn, gold is ancient, yet undefeated, because gold is not just an investment. It is proof of enduring human behavior. When times are good, people ignore gold. When markets are strong, they forget gold. When inflation is low, they dismiss gold. But when the cycle turns, they run back to gold like survivors to a lifeboat. Human psychology has not changed in centuries. Neither has gold. Its value is not just economic. It is emotional, historical, primal. It represents trust when systems fail, stability when currencies fall, and security when markets shatter. That is why gold always returns to the center of the financial world during crisis. It is not magic, it is memory. The memory of every collapse before. Great investors respect history, and history respects gold. Wealth is useless if it cannot move, if it cannot be carried, if it cannot cross borders, crises, generations. A house cannot move with you. A bank balance can disappear overnight. Digital money can be blocked, frozen, hacked, erased. But gold in your hand, in your family, in your inheritance, travels beyond all barriers. This is not just financial power. It is personal freedom. When nations face war, people escaped carrying gold, not currency. When governments collapsed, gold preserved dignity and survival. When banking systems limited withdrawals, gold acted as independence. Generational wealth is not built only by earning, but by protecting. What is passed forward must survive beyond inflation, beyond political change, beyond crisis. Gold does not rust. It does not expire. It outlives everyone who touches it. 1 bar of gold today may belong to your great-grandchild tomorrow, unchanged in power. Few assets can do that. Gold is not just money. It is legacy. The greatest investors know that wealth is not measured in years, but in centuries. And gold is the only asset capable of crossing centuries with its strength untouched. Paper fades, systems reset, currencies die, gold remains. That is why every great investor owns it, quietly, confidently, permanently.